at getsuperbeets.com with code RADIO. That's a free 30-day supply and 15% off for radio listeners only at getsuperbeets.com, code RADIO.
We can get your car in and done maybe next week. Next week?
Is this what you hear when you call your shop? Hi, this is Matthew Carlson, owner of Fix It Forward Auto Care. We know you've got places to go, things to do, and people to see. That's why Fix It Forward promises to get your vehicle in quickly, the repairs done properly, and you safely back out on the road. Our speed of service is the service that you deserve. Fix It Forward Auto Care, the name you trust for car repair.
Fix It Forward Auto Care.
This is Weather and Ag in Focus with Bridgette Readel, Justin Storm, and Dean Wysocki.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
Air down. Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait. Everybody calm down.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us on this Friday. It's 106 right now, and current temperatures outside of the FM Metro are approaching the 70-degree mark. We're at 71 here in Fargo with a north wind at 8 miles per hour. We'll have a full look on that forecast coming up from Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki in just a few moments. Program phone number 701-293-9000. That's the Red Wing Shoes phone line if you want to join in on today's show, ask any questions or comments, as well as emails, weatherorag@flagfamily.com. It's that time of the day. Where is Bridgette? Bridgette, where are you located at?
Good news.
She's still at home.
Still made it to my office today. The commute was horrendous. I mean, I had to go all the way through the living room, bypassing the kitchen because I had to get the sourdough bread out of the bread machine. I mean, it's been a lot, people. Lots.
And if you were watching on the live stream, you could see where Bridgette is each and every single day because usually it's somewhere different. Live stream each and every single day, Facebook, YouTube Live, as well as Acres TV.
And it'll be different next week several times.
Hey, right on. Looking forward to guessing where you're at.
And Bridgette, you dodged the bullet this morning, didn't you?
Ooh.
You guys didn't.
I did not get any hail.
Yeah, I know. How much rain did you end up getting? Couldn't have been much. Most of it.
6/10.
I gotta take the exit ramp to the driveway to go get the rain gauge and check. I'm not sure yet. I haven't had a chance to go look.
Yeah, there was we had golf ball size hail in Barnesville.
Ooh, that'll do some damage.
That'll do a little damage. Also, a lot of power outages in Otter Tail County due to the strong winds. And yeah, storm packed quite a punch.
Sure did.
I'll tell you what, it's turning out to be a decent afternoon. Now, question for you, Bridgette. Okay, so the crops out in and around the Barnesville area.
You're going to ask the question I was thinking that I didn't even tell you.
Too bad.
Good minds think alike.
So, a little late to the party here, boy.
Are you coming up to my level, or am I dropping down to yours because our brains are on the same wavelength right now?
I don't even want to even approach that one. So what would the hail do to the crops that are about ready to be harvested?
Okay, so I had some reports from folks down by about Groton, South Dakota this morning, and then that moved up into North Dakota. And I was seeing pictures of the ground, sidewalks, driveways entirely covered with hailstones. It wasn't just a little bit of hail, it was a lot of bit of hail.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure even at that point, the little hail probably will just knock beans in our situation, it probably just knocks them right off regardless of the size of the hail. You could probably get it with, penny-sized hail.
Right. So we had some pretty high wind yesterday, and even further south of us right now, Nebraska is expecting some high winds as well. So you're going to see those little those little brown pods on our soybean plants just shatter. If they get hit like that, they're just going to blow apart. You lose the beans on the ground. There's not a way to recover that.
Ooh,
when you corn,
the
corn right now. Well, which one of us is going to do that?
That's not working.
Well, I picked a cup of beans.
We'd find my pig
2 weeks ago. Oh, God, that took forever. Could you imagine picking little ones up off the ground?
Right. Mm.
Exactly. And so with our corn crop, right now you're going to see, there could be some stalks that get pushed over, broken down, and once that cob is too low for a header to pick it up, now we have that loss. Sugar beets really shouldn't have any effect, and I think our sunflowers aren't dried down enough yet that we saw any heads getting hit hard enough to shatter or anything like that. So far, so good.
Well, if you
keep
got
your fingers crossed, no more hail.
If you are south of the FM metro, points eastward into Minnesota, and you had some hail damage on the crop, you've had time to go out and survey it, and are being split open from the wind, the hail. Is your corn knocked over? Give us a call on the Red Wing Shoes phone line. Love to hear what this storm's impact was on some of our farming community out there. 701-293-9000 is, again, the Red Wing Shoes phone line. And you can call in
There
at
were
any point.
probably some cattle out on pasture that got pelted, thinking, "What is this?"
Right.
A little late in the season, just about October.
Raindrops
Not funny.
keep falling on my head, except they're hailstones.
Right, exactly. So that's a
Some hard-hitting
downside.
rain.
I didn't think this was funny. Now I'm ready to go back to the barn. That's
Right.
enough.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
Why don't we run down the forecast?
Yeah, we can do that.
We've got partly cloudy skies out there right now. More sun west of the valley and more clouds east of the valley. We'll slowly see these clouds break apart, so we'll call it partly cloudy the rest of the day. Highs in the low to mid 70s with those winds out of the northwest, about 5 to 15, gusting a little higher at times. Tonight, a chilly one. It'll feel nice. 50 degrees for our low. So might need a little sweatshirt for tomorrow morning if you're tailgating for the Bison homecoming. But a decent afternoon, with highs into the mid to upper 70s. A little breezy with winds out of the east. And then a little taste of summer on Sunday. Ooh. Highs in the mid 80s, but it will be windy on Sunday. Southeast winds gusting at or over 30. So, and then we'll start off next week in the low 80s. We'll end next week with highs in the 50s. A nice taste of fall coming in here by the end of next week.
I'll put those hard ciders in the refrigerator and get them ready.
I would make sure you know which nights you're leaving your windows open and which nights you're not.
Yeah. By the end of next week, I'm guessing that
I'm cracking mine open.
I'm guessing that a lot of furnaces will be turned on for the first time.
Yeah. I'm sure they will.
Can you smell that? That's pumpkin spice. And so it's like everywhere. And now everybody's turning on their furnaces and closing the windows. And it's also Han Solo season because you see all the moms with their knee boots and their turtlenecks and vests.
I didn't even think of that.
That's awesome.
Oh, man. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you want to make a quick buck, I would recommend looking into Starbucks because the pumpkin spice lattes are about to explode.
Doing everything I can to help you guys. Just keeping it up for you.
You're awesome.
Well, let's see. Coming up on the show today, we got a few ag topics we're going to get to, and one of them will be showing off beef talents and outstanding in the field dining. I'll be talking a little bit about that. That one's got my curiosity. And also the school bus chuck wagon for field meals. And I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed a good old chuck wagon. You ever have a chuck wagon,
no.
Dean?
I
Bridgette?
have not.
You've never had a chuck wagon.
Never had a chuck wagon.
No way.
Well, wait. It's coming from small town cafes. We better define. What do you think a chuck wagon is?
It's one of those little prepackaged sandwiches with some cheese and some mayo and ham and a poppy seed bun, and you just slap the whole thing in the microwave, and you just got this cheesy little meat sandwich. Oh, it's so good.
You're a pizza pocket kind of guy, aren't you?
I'm actually not, but I'm a pizza roll person at heart.
Okay.
Probably the rest of my life.
So here's where that high school waitressing job is totally going to pay off for me. We called it a chuck wagon. For us was literally a meatloaf sandwich. It was big fat slices of meatloaf between homemade, it was homemade bread or homemade buns. Generally there was a slathering of cheese and a fair amount of ketchup involved, but that was a chuck wagon sandwich.
That sounds better than Justin's.
No.
Oh, yes, it does.
But okay, so Justin, as the chef of the group, when we talked about these field meals, so to speak, right? So outstanding field dining. This is actually happening in a number of places. You could go online to find one of these outstanding in the field dining experiences. They're happening all over the U.S. There is a website for them. It's $365 a plate. You might be seated in a field, in a barn, on a fisheries dock, wherever your meal came from. Your farmers will be there with you to describe how the product was raised. The chefs will talk about how it was processed and cooked and prepared for you, and then you get to dine on a 5-course meal. There is another group that's doing one as well. Those are only about $120 a plate, and that's called the Farmer's Dinner, and they are also hosting on-farm dinners. A lot of times they're in a field. Literally, you can reach out and touch the corn right over next to you.
Cool.
New dining experience.
Right on. That sounds
And
really
where's
cool.
this at, Bridgette?
Your backyard?
Yeah, all over the U.S.
Okay.
The Farmer's Dinner is happening in New Hampshire, but the Dining in the Field experience, that one's happening in places all over the U.S., and people actually fly in globally to attend them.
Cool. That sounds like
Anywhere
fun.
anywhere close by?
Are you taking me? Because it's $365 a plate, and I'm not tipping. I just want you to know.
ain't paying either.
365 times 2. Yeah, they'll have to wait till payday, but sure.
How many paydays?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
It's inflation.
How about we just take a road trip to Fogo de Chao in Minneapolis? And,
You might want to just run over to Walmart and pick up a couple chuck wagons and call it a day. By the way, your Deli Express chuck wagon, Dean, it is salami, bologna, cured turkey, American and Swiss cheese on a poppy seed Kaiser bun.
This is why I haven't had one. That's exactly why.
And I've seen the stuff you eat, and this should be like right up your alley.
No. No, thank you.
You want me to add some dirty mushrooms to it?
That would work.
Oh, there you go.
Then we're talking.
Now, going right along with that discussion, there are some families that have taken old school buses, and one in particular, these folks are in Alberta. They took a 72-passenger bus, took the seats out, and converted it to a mobile chuck wagon, a mobile dining hall, so they can pull out into the field. There is a 8-foot serving table with a lip on it, so things don't come sliding off. And that's just where the food and the coffee station are set up. It's got an inverter package, so they can run a refrigerator. They set up a long table and chairs, or benches actually, down the center. You can come on in. There's a hand washing station, paper towels mounted to the ceiling so you don't have to reach for napkins and so forth. And then instead of worrying about sitting on a tailgate in a dry, dusty field, you can step on into a school bus and have your lunch when you're out in the field.
Nice. Sounds like a good time. And we got a guest coming up in our next segment. That's going to be Sarah Vogel.
We do.
She's a former North Dakota Ag Commissioner and also the author of The Farmer's Lawyer. And Bridgette, you were giving us a little taste of some of the things we'll be talking about today. If you want to add anything else in there, or we can just come back with it straight out of the break. I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I'm hoping you guys did a little bit of homework. If not, you're going to ask a lot of questions. This will be pretty interesting. So for those of us who are around during the farming era of the 1980s and even into the late 70s, a lot of things changed. Some look familiar to where we are today. Not all. We're going to talk about those with Sarah. Sarah Vogel was indeed the attorney who sued FMHA, one of the agencies, actually the lending agency for USDA. And we will do that when we return. Don't go anywhere. You want to dial up and ask questions as well. We'll be right back.
Livestock is lower this afternoon. Hogs leading the descent. For the American Ag Network, I'm Richard Risvet with this market update. Even though yesterday's market saw more technical support than earlier in the week, the live cattle complex is back to trading lower. The cash cattle market steady to somewhat weaker tone hasn't lent much additional support as this week's trade has trickled in by bits and pieces, and its overall tone has been quite soft. No new sales have been reported so far, and it's likely the week's business is essentially done. So far this week, Northern Dress deals had a range of $288 to $293, mostly at $290 to $291. That is $1 to $2 lower than last week. Southern live transactions have been marked at $182 to $183, mostly at $183. That is fully steady with last week. Box beef prices are mixed. Choice up 90 cents and select down 11 with a movement of 70 loads. Now, the feeder cattle contracts are also trading lower as traders again move the spot November contract to the bottom of its recently established trading range. The feeder cattle complex isn't lacking fundamental support, and the further the market moves through October, the better prices will likely become. Sale barns have seen slightly softer prices this week, but it's only been about $1 or $2 lower here and there, as the only group really getting discounted are the unweaned, unvaccinated calves. Now, as for the hogs, traders are allowing the lean hog contracts to trade lower as the fears of a government shutdown mixed with yesterday's quarterly hogs and pigs report isn't setting well with the complex. Now, it's likely the market will close with this doggish mindset as support isn't seeming to develop fundamentally or technically. We'll get a look at the livestock numbers. You're listening to the American Ag Network.
In today's troubled world, our USA Armed Forces stand ready to protect you, your family, and our American way of life. When veterans return to civilian life, they deserve your recognition and support. You can help put vets to work by donating your car, truck, or van to Patriotic Hearts. Your donation will directly support programs to help vets find jobs or even start their own business. Donate today for fast, free pickup of your vehicle, running or not. Operators are standing by to answer questions about making a tax-deductible vehicle donation. Find out how you can make a difference in the life of a United States veteran. Call 800-209-6416 for 24-hour response. Call 800-209-6416. 800-209-6416. That's 800-209-6416.
Let's get a look at the livestock numbers. Live cattle October down 215 at 184.35. December down 242 at 188 even. February down 195 at 192.67. April down 182 at 195.60. Lean hogs October down 332 at 80.62. December down 375 at 71.77. And the February lean hogs, they're down 297 at 75.62. For the American Ag Network, I'm Richard Ristvet.
This is Weather and Ag in Focus with Bridgette Readel, Justin Storm, and Dean Wysocki.
Back to Weather and Ag in Focus. This is one of the days where, first of all, I'm always excited about the guests we have, but I will tell you that as a kid growing up in North Dakota, I always heard a lot about Sarah Vogel and all the work that she had done because as a farmer's daughter, she was the farmer's lawyer. And that's the title of Sarah's book. She wrote that book to reminisce and show us the history of what happened in the 1980s farm crisis. And Sarah also went on to then be the North Dakota Ag Commissioner for our state. And I think there was just a lot of things that folks today might not know. So Sarah Vogel, thank you for joining us. I look forward to asking all sorts of questions.
I'm delighted to be here. It's really great. Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right. Where do we start? Maybe the fact that this was your very first case out of law school and you were literally going to sue the U.S. government. Sort of a ballsy move, don't you think so?
That's one way to start off a career. This is going to go really well, or is this going to be a big learning curve for me?
Yeah. Well, I actually had been out of law school a while. I'd been on the East Coast though, and I'd actually been part of the federal government because I was at the Federal Trade Commission and I'd worked at a big corporation, and so. But when I moved back to North Dakota, I was in solo practice. And in my whole legal career, I had never been, in a trial. I had never filed a case. I'd done a couple little defense things, but I'd never filed anything. But what the book goes into is how I was led to conclude that the only thing I could do is file a lawsuit on behalf of all of the farmers' home borrowers in North Dakota against the federal government. It had to be done.
Essentially, nobody told you no, so let's go forward with that, right? Let's just start this situation.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit of a picture? What did that look like? What was happening to farmers, not only in North Dakota, but across the U.S. during that time frame?
Yeah,
a lot of it stemmed from the
80s
Reagan
crisis about.
Yeah.
What happened is that people forgot about the 30s. In the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, times were good. Land values were going up. Farmers were making money. Lenders were lending money. Everybody was very happy. And then it all it all went south. It kind of all went south all at once. And I think what triggered it is that the under Ronald Reagan, the USDA decided, well, actually, it started at the Office of Management and Budget, where the Stockman, who was the head of the Office of Management and Budget, said that every agency in the country that had overdue debts had to have them repaid, and he gave like a couple months, and the delinquency had to be reduced by 25%. Well, the only way to do that in agriculture was to file a foreclosure, accelerate the debt, and force the farmer to sell out. So all these people around in little offices around North Dakota just started accelerating loans, which meant that instead of having 40 or 35 more years and a 40-year mortgage to pay the loan back, you had to pay it in 30 days, all of it. Wow. Well, you can't do that unless you transfer it back to the government. So this was happening, and then because people were selling and going out of business, land values were dropping, and it just became this spiraling down. And people were losing their jobs. Little towns were rolling up. Implement dealers. It had such a ripple effect on the whole state. But where it started, I think, was these accelerations, and then when I didn't intend at first to file a big lawsuit. What I intended to do was to point out the errors of the way USDA was behaving. And I thought they would straighten out, but my goodness, they just doubled down. And so eventually we went to court, and by then I had gathered up other lawyers to help me with this case. And we filed it, and we had a fabulous North Dakota judge, Judge Bruce M. Van Sickle. There's a courthouse named for him in Minot. Just a great man. And he understood farming, and he understood farmers, and he understood what USDA was doing to all these people. And so he gave us an injunction, and then I'm condensing a lot of stuff. And then we protected the farmers of North Dakota, but all over the country, there were farmers in the exact same situation, and in many cases worse off than in North Dakota. And they started calling, and eventually we decided to make it into a national class action. And then it became a national class.
It was a huge national cause. And one of the things that you said was about Judge Van Sickle here in North Dakota understanding farming. Do you think the outcome would have been vastly different for that case had it been tried in a different state with a judge who was not connected to agriculture?
I do think so. And Judge Van Sickle was very, very fair. He was fair to us. He was fair to the federal government. He gave everybody a hearing. He listened, but he did understand farming. And I think oftentimes, there were similar cases filed. Like there was one in Minnesota where the judge gave half a loaf, which wasn't enough to stop the loss of farmers. But eventually, it ended up covering at first 45 states and then basically 50 states, but it was all Judge Van Sickle. And so he's the hero.
He was. And this wasn't just a small situation that was happening. And so for those who are listening and don't know what was going on in the 1980s, just as Sarah mentioned, this was a crisis that was happening all across the country. We saw many small rural communities that completely dried up and were gone because of the loss of so many farmers. And part of the impetus to this was farmers were encouraged to increase, to buy more, to leverage their land because they were being profitable in the 1970s. And then all of a sudden things changed and the government wanted a reduction in debt. And one of the ways to do that was to accelerate those loans. So just imagine that 5-year car loan, you're only 4 months in, and we're going to need it by Thanksgiving.
Well,
now,
and
that's
even
what was happening to
during
farmers.
that time period, it wasn't just the individuals and the farmers that were getting hit hard with that and losing a lot. The companies that are involved in all this agriculture were heavily affected with it, and there were a lot of bankruptcies and a handful of mergers that happened, and there were only a good handful of reputable companies that ended up surviving through that. So, Sarah, I was wondering, after we come back from bottom of the hour news, if you could touch on that a little bit, on just some of a little bit of the history, if you got it, on how these businesses were affected and what they had to do to survive during this time period. And of course, if you have any questions and you want to join in on this conversation, give us a call on the Red Wing Shoes phone line. This is your opportunity as well. It's 701-293-9000 or email at weatherorag@flagfamily.com. Stay tuned. After news, we'll be right back.
From North Star Plumbing and Drain Cleaning, we have a great special during the month of September and October. $100 off water heaters. The coupon is on the website. How old is your water heater? And we are checking those sub pumps for fall too. And another $100 off kitchen and bathroom remodels. People are scheduling now, so give us a call at 701-367-9592 or visit us online at northstarplumbingnd.com. That's North Star Plumbing and Drain Cleaning.
Pucklet Chevrolet Buick GMC in Valley City makes it easy to find your next Chevrolet Buick GMC or pre-owned vehicle by offering a great selection at our best prices possible.
Good afternoon, I'm Tom Tucker, WDAY News First. The North Dakota Supreme Court has struck down the state's budget bill, forcing state lawmakers to return to the Capitol for a special session. The justices invalidated Senate Bill 2015, calling it unconstitutional and therefore void. The court ruled the bill violates a provision of the state constitution by addressing more than one subject. North Dakota Secretary of State has approved a petition for a ballot initiative aimed at overhauling North Dakota elections. The measure would ban voting machines and would only allow for paper ballots. It also mandates that all votes be counted by hand and would also prohibit unsupervised public drop boxes for those ballots. The North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality is warning hunters to be on the lookout for blue-green algae. It grows in warm, calm bodies of water and may look like grass clippings or green cottage cheese. The toxic algae is dangerous for people and can be fatal to pets. And 2 teens from Edina, Minnesota have invented an app to help teenagers become more aware of their feelings. The Feel Now app aims to help teens track their mental and emotional health. The app will have users document how they feel once a day. The World Health Organization says 1 in 7 kids ranging in age from 10 to 19 is battling a mental health disorder. Tom Tucker, WDAY, and WDAYRadioNow.com.
Embarrassed by ugly yellow toe fungus?
Living with toe fungus it's embarrassing. I was afraid to take my socks off. I hid my yellow and crumbly toes from everybody.
Introducing Crystal Flush. Crystal Flush is the only FDA-registered 2-in-1 home treatment that attacks your toe fungus from both the inside and out. Crystal Flush's new and different combination system knocks out toe fungus for good. Guaranteed.
Crystal Flush is different. After just a few weeks, my fungus was gone. 100% disappeared. Crystal Flush was the only thing that ever worked. So if you're skeptical because you tried a bunch of other stuff, Crystal Flush is different. This is a game changer.
Crystal Flush is now available without a prescription, but it is not available in stores. Get your risk-free supply today. Go to crystalflush.com. That's CRYSTAL flush.com. Stop being embarrassed by ugly yellow toenails. Go to crystalflush.com or call 800-204-4484.
Hey man, looking good. It's Stitch Fix. I'd like to thank my stylist for making me look so great. They always get my fit just right. They send clothes that work for me and my budget. They even found me my favorite pair of jeans. I'd like to thank Stitch Fix because let's get real, I couldn't make this style happen on my own. They just make everything so easy. So thank you, Stitch Fix. They just get me, and they'll get you too. Stitch Fix. Take your style quiz today at StitchFix.com.
Weather and Ag in Focus on WDAY Radio.
Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for rejoining us. It's 1:34 Rejoining our conversation with Sarah Vogel, former North Dakota Ag Commissioner and author of The Farmer's Lawyer, who took on the U.S. government back in the after the farm crisis of the 80s. If you want to join on this conversation, again, the phone numbers to do so, 701-293-9000. And Sarah, before we went to break, I was wondering, because it wasn't just the farming individuals and the farming towns around the country that were affected by this. It was a lot of companies as well, and a lot of them went through bankruptcies and closures, and only a good handful of the reputable businesses ended up surviving. So I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about what happened on the business side of agriculture across the U.S. during this whole time period of the 80s.
It was basically a bloodbath for Main Street in rural towns in North Dakota and elsewhere. And one of the saddest things is that the big lenders, like the federal government, they were very paper oriented. They would always have the farmer sign a bunch of documents pledging da 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 da. And then the Main Street businesses that had gone to high school with the farmer, they knew they would pay. They were trustworthy. They'd been on the land for generations. But when the government stepped in, they empty the person's bank account out, empty it overnight.
Wow.
No warning whatsoever. And then the checks would be bouncing up and down Main Street. It was really awful. And all the human relationships and, kids weren't even able to pay their own parents for, on the mortgage. So it was awful, and it didn't stop. It really didn't stop for a long time. But I want to do a shout out, if I could, to local banks. The local banks the little country banks tended to step in. Many of my clients who had been, the U.S. government said they were hopeless. It's inevitable that they were going to go down, and they had to go. And so the federal government kicked them out cruelly. And then the local bank said, I trust you. I trust your character. I know who you are. I will stick with you. So keeping local banks is really, I think, really critical. And they often were the saviors. I didn't have any trouble with local banks. They were great. It was the federal government that was supposed to be helping the farmers. That wasn't.
Wow.
It was awful. It just spread like wildfire. And the reason why I wrote the book is that I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to have to go. I don't want to see that happen. It shouldn't happen. There needs to be compassionate support. There needs to be support for small and mid-sized family farmers and local businesses and Main Street businesses, and sensible lending processes, because we don't. Farmers are the backbone. They're the actual soul of North Dakota. We need to keep them and help them.
And Sarah, what laws changed after this lawsuit, and is there anything preventing this from happening again?
What happened after the lawsuit is that things kept getting worse and worse and worse, and then finally in early 1988, what they call the 87 Agriculture Credit Act came in, and it provided a massive amount of money to the federal land bank system, because they were about to go down too, and they would have taken all the pension funds in the United States with them.
Yes.
But the 87 Ag Credit Act basically restructured debt, provided a lot of protections in the law for farmers, and allowed farmers the opportunity to refinance their debts at the devalued rate. And by the way, interest rates were insane in the mid 80s. I mean, farmers sometimes had interest rates of, 12, 14, 18%, which is impossible.
Right.
7% is impossible right now.
Yeah, it is. So there's a lot to be said for caution when it comes to credit. But we have a bank in North Dakota, and the bank in North Dakota right now, I've got to get crabby here. Last time I looked up what their rates were for farm loans, they were 8%. That's crazy. With a bank and all the profits the bank has and the money that the state has, there should be zero interest loans for farmers who want to expand and diversify and start younger farmers out. We have a crisis because there are too few younger farmers, and they're not. We value all our older farmers. Don't get me wrong, but I think there are something like 7 times more older farmers than there are younger farmers. So we need to bring on new farmers and help them and support them. And one of the ways of doing that is credit in generous terms.
And Sarah, I know you said earlier that you hope this never happens again, but is there any laws set in place specifically so this does not happen again?
Well, we do have the chapter 12, which is a Farm Bankruptcy Act that's better designed for farmers than we have that. And we have, USDA today is much more compassionate, much more alert in terms of trying to help farmers and providing low-cost credit. But the bulk, USDA's share of the lending market has dropped precipitously since then. And now most of the credit comes out of the Farm Credit Services. So I think it makes me all very nervous, because when I look at what farmers get for their crops, it's sometimes they get less for their crops than what they put into growing those crops. And the difference comes from various and sundry government programs of amazing complexity. But I worry about the political side of, if that support were pulled back. I mean, right today, we're on the verge of a government shutdown. And what does that mean for farmers? It's scary. And again, the reason why we have farm programs, it's in the national defense. Food is essential. That's what farmers do. They produce food and fiber and fuel. And, they're the base of the economy. They're one of the biggest economic engines in the country. So we can't neglect them. We can't mistreat them. And it's, to me, the vulnerability of farmers now is too much dependence on the federal government and the markets.
And Sarah, when you brought up politics, that is such a big point. Because so I don't know that folks really understand exactly how volatile the times were then, much similar to what we see right now. And part of your book addresses that, the fact that there became some very heavy-handed agricultural movements. There were protests down on the Texas border at McAllen, Texas, where 250 farmers were arrested. Posse Comitatus emerged, which in a nutshell, Posse Comitatus was a group that didn't believe in paying taxes to the federal government. And there was a lot of farmers who got involved in that. And I remember something from your book when you said you were afraid that was the route farmers would take because they felt they had no hope.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people realize they really felt they had no hope.
Yeah. I mean, if the Posse Comitatus, and it was very, very deliberate on their part, and it was very evil on their part, but they would go to a farmer and they'd say, we'll help you. We'll stop the sale. And, they were violent. They were anti-Semitic. They were racist. They were horrible, horrible, horrible. But when regular society didn't provide any support for the farmers, they turned to whomever is providing support. So I think it's absolutely essential in hard times, whether it's people who are out of work or coal miners or just struggling people wherever, they all want help. And regular society, standard society, democracy should come to help those people so that they don't turn to the dark side, which was the Posse Comitatus. And 2 marshals were killed in the shootout, the very famous shootout by Medina. By the way, I mispronounce it sometimes now because when my Audible book first came out, the reader pronounced
Medina.
Pronounce it Medina, so I've used that example, like why. So now I read the book and I pronounced it correctly, but anyway, never mind. But,
oh, no worries on that. You should hear me and Dean try and read off some of these town names. At some point, I just do it wrong on purpose now.
Yeah, so we're all, but yeah, it was, and these were good people, and and then they got misled, and so that's why I think, like, the ag departments of the federal and the state government. Back when I was ag commissioner, we had, I think I had up to 80 farm credit counselors working one-on-one with farmers, helping them to run the paperwork and get out of jams. And I think now the ag department maybe has 1, but
Wow.
it's scary. We need. Of course, nowadays we have internet, we have we have other tools, but we should always be protective and not want to have history repeat itself. And by the way, I grew up with so many stories of the 30s. That's where I got my inspiration, was from the Nonpartisan League in the 30s and Governor Langer's foreclosure moratorium. And I was just inculcated with the belief that if you stick by the farmer will come through. That was the Nonpartisan League.
Well, Sarah, as we wrap up our last few minutes with you, I will tell you that you grew up with stories of the 30s, but as a little kid growing up in the late 70s and early 80s in North Dakota, I grew up with your name. Farmers talked about what you were doing and how you went on to become ag commissioner in the state of North Dakota. And my dad always told me, politics aside, because let's face it, some folks are going to say, oh, but she's a Democrat. Okay, here's the deal. We all have to do what we have to do together when it comes to state government in the state of North Dakota. There's not enough of us to go around. And my dad always said, if you can grow up to be ag commissioner like Sarah Vogel, that would be a good thing. So there you go. That's was why I grew up knowing your name.
Oh, wow. That is very, very nice. When I was ag commissioner, I never once asked anybody what their politics were. Ever.
Didn't matter.
Never.
Nope.
It didn't matter. I mean, you're there for the citizens, and actually, I grew up in the Nonpartisan League, so I was a Nonpartisan League / Democrat, and one of the wonderful things about North Dakota is that history we have. We have the state mill, we have the bank, we have a whole lot of good laws that are based on citizen initiatives and citizen involvement. So I'm very hopeful, and I really there are so few farmers now. There aren't enough farmers now, so farmers need allies, which is what your radio show can do. I'll understand the deep importance of farmers and the farm economy, and they're not expendable.
No.
You got to keep them.
And we need to keep all our supporters, and you are one of them. So Sarah Vogel, thank you so very much for coming in to talk about the 80s crisis. And thank you for your book, The Farmer's Lawyer. If those of you haven't read it yet, you can pick it up at your favorite bookstores. I don't mind you go to an independent book retailer. That's not a problem. And then you can also find Sarah online at her website. So please go give her website a look and pick up an extra copy to read. So thank you, Sarah. And we are going to go catch up with some of our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a treat. Okay, bye.
I'm Jimmy Uland, and I farm close to Prosper, North Dakota. I've been with Peterson Farm Seed for probably 20 years. I use soybeans and corn, and I guess I have wheat too, so you can be assured that when they recommend a product for your field that it's going to be the right one because they do so much in-field research. What matters to farmers more than anything is yield. With the research that they do in this area, they do have the right products for the right soil type or environment. Usually their yields are right at the top.
That was Jim Uland with his views on Peterson Farm Seeds.
No games, no gimmicks, no bull. At Luther Family Buick GMC, our inventory is clearly marked with rock bottom prices. Every vehicle, every day, all month long. Take home a brand new Sierra with rates as low as 0.9%. Or check out the exciting new Buick Envista. Get the best vehicles at the best prices with no games, no gimmicks, no bull. Luther Family Buick GMC, I-29 and 32nd Avenue, South Fargo. We are professional grade.
Family fun is calling you to Chihinkapa Zoo.
It's lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And did I mention rhinos, cheetahs, and zebras? The Chihinkapa Zoo is now open for the 2023 season. The exhibits, all the attractions are waiting for your family or group. So many reasons to visit the Chihinkapa Zoo this summer. It all starts at the website, chihinkapazoo.org.
Fun is calling you to Chihinkapa Zoo.
The Chihinkapa Zoo.
The landscape of media has changed, and people are more skeptical than ever about where they get their news and information. While major news outlets show decreasing credibility, your local farm radio station still shows strong marks. In a recent survey, farmers rated information from their farm broadcasters as almost twice as reliable as major news outlets. Farm radio continues to be transparent, honest, and trustworthy. This message brought to you by the National Association of Farm Broadcasting.
The pets in our homes love us, from the moment they meet us until the day they leave us. Homeless animals would do the same if only they had the chance. Be an animal's hero and adopt. Turtle Mountain Animal Rescue has the perfect four-legged family member for you right now. Find yours at turtlemountainanimalrescue.org.
You have all helped support MyPillow and their employees in these tough economic times. Mike Lindell knows and continues to give back to listeners with deals on the most popular products. You've heard me recently speak about the My Slippers, the Giza Sheets, MyPillow 2.0, and more.
Great news! The MyPillow 6-pack bath towel sets are back in stock. The proprietary technology that makes them extremely absorbent, yet still providing that soft feel that you like in a towel. Soft. The set comes with 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. Regular price $79.98. For a limited time, get this 6-pack towel set only $39.99 with promo code WDAY. That's a 50% savings.
So go to MyPillow.com or call 1-800-875-0644 and use the promo code WDAY to save 50% on the MyPillow 6-pack towel set. This deal will not last long. Again, enter promo code WDAY for this special and many more.
Hi, I'm Kevin Wolf, president of Laney's. Do you have your heating system serviced each year? Did you know that this service can pay for itself and also extend the life of your equipment? If not, you need to consider Laney's for all of your planned maintenance needs. Our technicians will ensure that your equipment is operating safely and efficiently. So for peace of mind, call us today at 237-0543 or visit us on the web at laneysinc.com.
828 is just great.
This is Weather and Ag in Focus with Bridgette Readel, Justin Storm, and Dean Wysocki.
Oh my God!
Yeah, welcome back. Weather and Ag in Focus. Got a full check on the forecast coming up here in just a moment, but a current check on your currents. It's Got temperatures near 72 degrees outside right now. Still cloudy, wind not too bad, as I mentioned. We'll touch on that forecast.
I'm seeing blue sky out the window. What are you talking about?
I said a little cloudy. It's a little cloudy.
It's blue sky.
You want to fight? You want to tussle?
Man, I'm telling you, we're going to... All right.
Your forecasting abilities have really gone down the drain.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
I thought that was some sort of unspoken rule that you two can't say that kind of thing to each other. It's just the rest of us that can say that.
Well, we could say it behind the scenes, but not over the airwaves.
We say it all the time.
Okay, fine. So, since you can't agree, what's the weather going to be like the rest of the week?
Well,
guys?
It's going to be a great weekend, Bridgette. In fact, a lot of things going on. We've got the Bison Homecoming. We've got Sausage Fest. We've got Hankinson Oktoberfest. Tons of stuff to do this weekend, and the weather is going to be absolutely beautiful. Today, not a bad one. We'll top out in the mid-70s with a little northwest breeze. Tonight, kind of cool, down to about 50. And Saturday, we'll have an east wind at 10 to 20, partly cloudy with highs in the mid to upper 70s and mid-80s on Sunday. But it's going to be windy. South winds increasing to around 30 miles an hour, and we'll stay with the warm weather Monday. Highs in the 80s. Could see some widespread rain on Tuesday into Wednesday. And then temperatures falling into the 50s for highs towards the latter part of next week. Now, Bridgette, let's say we get 1 inch to 2 inches of rain Tuesday into Wednesday. Again, we need the moisture.
Okay.
But
and I'm okay with putting moisture back in the ground. It's just going to slow us up for harvest.
Okay.
Moisture is going to be really variable on the soybeans, because they're going to absorb some moisture, then they need to dry out again. That's where NDSU has already started putting out some recommendations if you have to be doing any drying to make sure that you know what your moisture range should be for harvest. I don't want to say it's the end of the world because we just need some of the rain. Now, I did see pictures from down around Fairmount, North Dakota today. That's closer to the South Dakota line, and they got a lot of rain. There was a lot of water
close to 2. Yeah. Well, and then they got hit hard. They got hit hard with the last storm that went through here too. So.
Yeah. So they're a little bit on the wet side.
Yeah, I think. Because that was the area that picked up close to 5 inches of rain, and then they just picked up another 1 to 2. And this is just over, a week and a half span. So
yeah, down there, especially down by Morton.
They'd like to wait.
They're the winners for today's rainfall.
Right.
Yeah. About 1.4 inches of rain down by Morton. So, and like you said, 4 or 5 inches before just a few days ago.
Yeah, so they're they need to dry out for sure.
Speaking of winners, I want to make sure to insert this, and that is National Cattlemen's Beef Association wants to know your award-winning beef recipe because their national convention at the end of January, you could be the featured appetizer or entree. So start sending in those recipes to that website.
Beef tips.
And warm up beef tips. And then warm up your pipes because maybe you could be the national anthem singer. There's also a Beef's Got Talent contest. And I'm not signing us up because I really don't know where that would go if the three of us participated.
Oh, I think we could do well. I mean, Justin's he's the resident chef. This is one of the reasons I hired him. I mean, the forecasting ability was okay. It was so-so. But when I heard he was a chef, I'm like, well, and he still has not cooked one stinking meal for us.
I just brought you a jar of salsa, man. Isn't a jar of salsa over 3 years enough?
That was great salsa.
3 years, 1 jar of salsa.
I'm questioning his chef abilities.
Hey, you said the salsa
sounds
was
like
good.
18% interest on farmers in 1982.
Right? Exactly.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
Terrible estimate.
Do we have time for one more ag topic?
I just want to make sure that you guys had sent me an email. One of our listeners yesterday wanted to know about those miniature cows. I did send a response back to that listener, by the way.
Okay.
Those miniature cows that we were talking about are a Klein-Sasser family over by Big Timber, Montana. So if you're looking for mini cows, these are the people to go talk to.
Head over to Montana.
Who doesn't want one?
We had an emailer, Eminem. He says, nothing better than a chuck wagon from the gas station.
You're not going to read the rest of the email?
I can't read the rest of the email. Well, you can. It's right from the gas station where you get botulism and something else.
Yeah.
There you go. Something I can't necessarily say over the air.
That'd be great. Thank you. If we don't,
and
I need to know.
Think we're out of time here. I think the Jay Thomas Show is going to be coming up here in just a couple of moments. So stay tuned from that. Just a little bit. Have a great weekend.
Hey, it's Bonnie Mastati from Bonnie and Friends. Join us weekday mornings beginning at 5. Coming up in our next show, you're going to be hearing some new voices. Jace Denman joining us on a regular basis along with Big Game James McCarty.